much darker. Leland Vittert, right now.
Was that a rhetorical message to me?
No, you are right.
Well, hard to have a better handoff than that. Thank you, my friend. Good to see you. We begin tonight with the latest Democratic obsession to bring down Donald Trump's administration. Democrats are pegging their hopes on the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He is the illegal immigrant who was living in Maryland before his deportation back to his home country of El Salvador. Just moments ago, Garcia's attorney spoke with, as you saw, Cuomo about the case.
This is one of those examples where if the law's on your side, bang the law. If the facts are on your side, bang the law. And if you've got neither, and that's what they're doing, you bang loudly on the table. And so there's a lot of banging. I haven't seen a lot of proof in court. And it's very easy to say this stuff when you're not under oath at a press conference, but do it in court. Do it when you have a duty of candor to the court. Do it when you're at a risk of perjury. That's when I'll believe it.
Attorneys for Garcia and the Department of Justice appeared in court this afternoon. The judge in the case gave the DOJ 2 weeks to provide more details about Garcia's alleged ties to the MS-13 gang, which the White House says he is part of.
Abrego Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year.
For their part, Democrats and much of the American media believe that Garcia's case will bring Trump to his political knees. They are wrong. That's our Why It Matters segment tonight. We are not going to litigate right or wrong about Abrego Garcia being deported. This is about the politics. This is about why it matters tonight. Anti-Trump forces, Democratic senators and pearl clutchers in the media believe the Abrego Garcia story will offend Americans' sense of fairness. One of the things that makes America great is Americans are fair. In a vacuum, they may not be wrong. But we don't live in a vacuum. And Democrats are already turning Garcia into a martyr.
It is a constitutional crisis because the administration is under a court order to return this wrongfully deported man.
If the president has the power to jail, imprison, to deport anyone, even if they have a legal right to be here as a citizen or through protected status given by the courts, then none of us are safe.
I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained.
There is nothing Republicans would love more than a Democratic senator banging on the door of a prison in El Salvador, all to demand an illegal immigrant come back to the United States. Deporting him may have been wrong, but banging on the door in El Salvador to bring an illegal immigrant back is not where America is right now. Trump's base loves this, not because they love the cruelty and defiance, but they love someone doing something about the border. They wonder why the media cares so much about Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father, as we hear over and over again, but not so much about Rachel Morin, a Maryland mother, brutally raped and murdered by a Salvadorian illegal immigrant. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt made that point earlier.
The
For my husband.
Over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who was hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable. Frankly, the actions and the words of the Democrat Party prove they could not care less about the American public. And maybe if they did, they'd see a bit higher approval ratings right now.
Now, just think about how much we hear about this man right now. It's kind of how much we heard about Signalgate a couple of weeks ago. That was going to be the end of Donald Trump, the national security scandal of our lifetime. According to many on the left, we had never had a scandal of that magnitude, and it was gone all of a sudden. And just like with Signalgate, the administration screwed up in this situation as well. So why aren't people outraged? The answer is simple. The left and legacy media face an existential crisis. Nobody believes them anymore. They said the border was secure. They said President Biden was in good health. They tried to indict Trump to stop him. They investigated him and indicted him and convicted him. Didn't work. And now, when speaking about Garcia, they're reporting convenient facts and painting Trump as a dictator.
The president of El Salvador refusing to release a Maryland father sent to that notorious prison.
And he was kidnapped by ICE and rendered to the torture prison.
Just so that Donald Trump can use them as props in this Shakespearean play that he has made up.
I did not think he would get this authoritarian this fast.
As a traditionalist and an American exceptionalist, deporting someone who's never been convicted of a crime, a violent crime, to the El Salvadorian gulag seems a little heavy-handed. But somehow, Abrego Garcia is now the left's fight of our time. Think the Iran hostage crisis. Republicans could only be so lucky. We begin tonight with Mark Caputo, White House correspondent for Axios, Chris Cillizza, journalist, senior advisor to DGA Group, also NewsNation contributor. Gents, good to see both of you. Mark, explain to us why Team Trump loves and relishes in this fight.
If you look at the net favorability ratings of Donald Trump, they're down. More people dislike his job approval than like it. If you look at it on the economy, it's really down. And that's one of the reasons his overall approval ratings are down. But if you look at his approval ratings on handling immigration, they're up. And so if Donald Trump can talk about immigration and have his opponents talk about immigration and not talk about the economy when the stock market is haywire and people have lost money in their 401ks, that's great for Donald Trump. Now, telling these facts on social media, as I did earlier, brands you among some on the left as being supportive of Kafkaesque and Orwellian detention and immigration policies. So there are a number of people on the left and the Democratic Party who just don't want to hear that sort of basic fact. And my Twitter DMs are just full of Republicans who are like, oh my God, we would be losing if it weren't for the fact that they're focusing on this than the other. And that's not to say that the left is wrong or Democrats are wrong about the detention of this man and the way in which he was deported, and he was deported apparently unlawfully. But on the politics of it, on the polling of it, this is the fight that Donald Trump wants, and Democrats are giving it to him.
And Chris, that's what I get to, and I can't figure it out. Democrats thought they had Donald Trump on DOJ and firing federal employees, backfired wildly. They thought they had him on Signalgate, backfired wildly. They thought they had him on tariffs in the economy, but they gave that up now to talk about immigration, an issue that they lost the election over because of Joe Biden and open borders. Do Democrats, is it Lucy in the football? They just can't help themselves?
Okay, two things. First, Leland, everything that Mark said is exactly right. If you need to understand why this is... That's why we have him on. I was nodding vigorously. I don't know if it was on camera or not, but he's exactly right. Leland, you and I have talked about this both on camera and off camera. And I think the issue here is it's not every Democrat, but a lot of Democrats, Democratic elected officials and Democratic activist types and major donors hate Donald Trump. And I use that word advisedly. I don't throw it around, but they hate him. And they don't understand why everyone doesn't. I always say to people, just because you hate him doesn't mean the average voter who's a swing voter hates him. But they view everything, when you hate someone, everything that person does is viewed as a 10 out of 10. The worst thing since fill in the blank. And when everything is a mountain, molehills. And you get into a boy who cried wolf situation. I'm throwing like 1,000 cliches at you. But the broader point I'm trying to make here is I just think he keeps getting them to fight on his ground. We're not talking about it, but I think the Harvard thing is another great example.
We're going to talk about it later in the show. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to defend a university that has a $53 billion endowment because they are not getting $2 billion from the federal government, then I guarantee people didn't even know they were getting. Like, just the politics of that favors Donald Trump.
Right. No, look, you choose to field the battle in politics, you win. And we have to be fair about this, because as much as Democrats and their allies in the media are going after Donald Trump and turning Abrego Garcia into Father of the Year, then Trump's friends in the media are demonizing him. Take a listen.
We had 11,088 murderers. Half of them killed more than one person. These are rough, bad people.
If you're in our country illegally, you're a criminal. illegal immigration is illegal, duh.
The left celebrating a gangbanger coming back into the country while they call him a Maryland dad.
Mark, is there a contingency plan as this goes on for, and maybe it won't matter, about the left, the media touching a nerve that this guy may not be as bad as Team Trump has made him out to be?
A contingency plan by whom? I don't quite follow.
By the White House.
Generally, no. Understand that the White House operates from news cycle to news cycle, and it follows Donald Trump's lead. And if Donald Trump has the opportunity, he wants to talk about immigration. And if his opponents happen to take him up on that offer, well, great for them. But they could have called on Bukele, the president of El Salvador, to release this man. They could have brought him back and then deported him through sort of regular order, which the DOJ has signaled it's going to do. But they've decided to leave him there for a reason, because they want this hanging out there. The district judge in the case had said that the federal government needs to, quote, facilitate and effectuate his return. The federal government appealed that, and the Supreme Court said, okay, yes, you have to facilitate his release, but what effectuate means we're not quite sure, because it's unclear how a district court can force a president to handle the immigration status or the overseas dealings with another government. So it's very complicated. Now the district court has to figure that out, and then it's probably going to go back to the Supreme Court. And the entire time, the administration is happy to keep this alive. And again, Democrats are obliging them on it, and this is just the nature of the culture wars.
Yeah.
Where both sides have decided to fight over this, and so that's what they're going to do.
Chris, and again, we go back to the numbers and to the facts and to the politics. And Mark makes a great point. On the issue of the economy right now, Donald Trump is having a hard time. It's not a conversation the White House wants to have. Why is this culture war, this idea of constitutional crisis and all of the things we've heard from Democrats so appealing to them over fighting on issues that are negative to Donald Trump?
Yeah, because I mean, I don't want to say the same thing, but I do really think there's a blind spot for a lot of Democrats when it comes to Donald Trump. I'm resistant to the Trump derangement syndrome thing, because I think people sort of throw that out. If you're ever critical of Donald Trump, whether it's merited or not, oh, you have TDS, Trump. No.
Okay, so Chris, you want to give me a prediction on how this is going to end up?
If I was the White House, I would try to keep it in the conversation for as long as possible because of what Mark talked about. Because if we're not talking about immigration, what are we talking about? His back and forth on tariffs, the uncertainty that creates, the stock market. The guy was elected, at least the guy was elected for two reasons, right, Leland? The economy and immigration. The economy ain't going so well. The more, again, if your political opponent eagerly seizes on station, you should think to yourself, they are that into extending this, to Mark's point, extending this as long as possible. That should be a signal. But again, because so many Democrats hate Donald Trump and believe he is America's Hitler, and I do think a lot of Democrats do believe that. I think they're wrong, but they believe it.
They believe it.
I think it's a blind spot. It's the car that you can't see in your rearview mirror.
Mark, give us the last 30 seconds. This is so much different than Trump's first term, where I think he would have blinked, or he would have tried to have it both ways, or he would have brought the guy back and then deported him again. And this time, he doesn't care. He's leaning into it. What's changed for them?
Well, what changes in 2020, Donald Trump, after 4 years of being steadily vilified, described, defined as a racist, an anti-Latino, anti-Hispanic racist, his margins improved with Hispanic voters. And then they improved even more in the 2024 election, even as he espoused a hardline immigration policy and mass deportations. So therefore, they think this not only works with white voters, but with black voters and with Hispanic voters. So that's where this is going to end up.
Gentlemen, I can think of no two better guys to have explained this and actually what is really happening versus the noise of both sides here. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Mark Caputo, Chris Cillizza, read both of you daily. We appreciate it. Joe Biden has returned to the national stage. There he is for his first post-presidency speech, a bipartisan event in support of Social Security. Former Governor Martin O'Malley introduced him. O'Malley joins us next with whether any Americans still care about Joe Biden.
Social Security is more than a government program. It's a sacred promise.
If you're tired of the political spin and partisan bickering on the other cable news channels, you've come to the right place. You're listening to NewsNation, America's fastest growing cable news network.
Former President Joe Biden is back on the airwaves, front and center for Democrats. He spoke today at an event about Social Security in Chicago. And you can decide for yourself if bringing Biden back is a good thing for Democrats. Donald Trump thought it was a great thing for him. So much so that he blasted out part of Biden's remarks on social media.
I had never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time and I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by.
With us now, former governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley, joining us from Chicago, where he just took the stage alongside former President Biden. Governor, good to see you. We appreciate it. I just want to talk strategy here because
I had the honor to introduce him. People there were very happy to see him. You know, I think Social Security never had a stronger defender in office than Joe Biden. And it was so good. The people in this bipartisan group of lawyers and counselors and representatives of people with disability, we're really glad to hear him come out with such a full-throated defense of Social Security.
All right. I understand that. And obviously Democrats think Social Security is something that they can hit Donald Trump on. But I'm just confused by the strategy. Let me just get a question out. Let me just get one question out. I'm confused by the strategy. Joe Biden left office historically unpopular. We now know through books of the cover-up of his health condition. How do Democrats think Joe Biden near a camera is a good thing for them?
Well, he certainly looked good on camera today, and everybody was glad to see him. I think that one of the things that perhaps we might be glossing over here is the fact that Social Security is being attacked with a chainsaw by Donald Trump and by the co-president Elon Musk, and they are packing waiting rooms. We are seeing times skyrocketing for delivery of services, and people should be rightly concerned that with all of the people that have been fired and driven out of Social Security, that I still believe, Leland, we're going to see an interruption of benefits in the very near future. And that's something that hasn't happened in 90 years. So I hope Joe Biden isn't the last former president that speaks out on this.
Okay.
Might be the first, but I'm hoping to hear from President Clinton. I'm hoping to hear from President Bush. None of those former presidents wanted to destroy Social Security quite like Donald Trump does.
I understand the attack on Donald Trump. Important to note that you're talking about the firing of people inside the Social Security Administration. I think we can both agree that so far there have been no proposed cuts to benefits. But I get this. Again, I just come back to Joe Biden, who Democrats pushed off the ticket, who Kamala Harris even made the point we need to turn the page from. That was a big part of their campaign. Do you not worry at all that having this conversation and Joe Biden up there in gaffes just sort of remind Americans of what happened and how they feel lied to?
No, not given the threat to Social Security, which is very, very imminent. No, I don't.
When you say threat, you say threat to Social Security, if there's one thing Donald Trump has been Sherman-esque about, is he's not going to touch Social Security, and that
he already has.
No, hold on. He's not going to touch benefits. There's two things. He's not going to touch benefits.
7,000 people out of Social Security, man. Where have you been? Is your head in the sand? There are lines outside of Social Security offices. House Republicans voted last year to cut it by $500 million. People can't get through on the phone lines. It is a show. and it has been created by Donald Trump and by Elon Musk.
What's the show?
Understand, man.
What's the show? I don't understand.
It's you know what kind of show it is. It's a disaster. These guys are dismantling Social Security, Leland. I mean, you can say they haven't cut benefits, but when you cut people's access to their benefits, you're cutting off their benefits. I mean, they're cramming people into Social Security offices, reception areas. They are deleting from the website.
Okay, so why are we not hearing? I don't have any of my own reporting on this. What's confusing What's confusing and confounding to me then is if Democrats think this is a winning issue, and I'll agree with you, Social Security gets cut. We said it on TV. It is going to be a huge problem. It's a huge problem for either party if they do it, if they are deemed responsible for it. Just ask George W. Bush, who had to back off immediately when he tried to reform Social Security. Why are we not seeing Democrats focus on this and have pictures of these waiting rooms you talk about and reporting on these phone lines and on and on? I haven't seen any of that.
Oh, it's out there, man. Today was a day of national action all across the country. There were 100 different demonstrations. Maybe you were out of town 2 weeks ago when tens of thousands of people showed up in Boston and Washington at the Social Security headquarters. People are pretty aware. I did 8 town halls across Florida, and they were packed with people. There are people, Congress people, holding town hall all across America. So people are very alerted to the fact that they're coming after their Social Security, and they have right to be concerned. Look, I don't know much about much, but I ran the Social Security Administration for a year. It was a remarkable turnaround year. I was taught by some of the smartest, most experienced people that kept that agency running all through the pandemic. And what I can tell you is this agency is being dismantled, deconstructed, and destroyed before our very eyes. And I do believe that the Doge people and co-President Musk have already taken 90% of the actions necessary to crater this agency into a system collapse that will interrupt benefits.
Well, if you are right, if it is going to be disastrous,
I don't want to be right.
For the Trump,
I hope I'm wrong. I've never hoped so much to be right.
I'll put it this way. I think we should all hope you're wrong, but if you're right, it will be significant, as we said. Governor, it's good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Good to see you, too.
See you in D.C. next. Continuing with our theme of not getting the message. Among the reasons the Democrats lost the 2024 election was the constant, never-ending Trump investigations. The American people felt he was being targeted by the left. It seemed unfair. We talked about it a lot. New York Attorney General Letitia James appears to have failed to learn that lesson. James's office is promising another investigation, this time into whether or not Trump World took part in insider trading in connection with the 90-day pause on tariffs. Clearly, we have missed her multiple press releases about investigating the questionable stock trading practices by members of Congress and their spouses. We missed them because they never happened. Seriously, members of Congress beat the market year after year after year, something hedge funds have never been able to do, and shockingly, members of Congress do it in their spare time. And we never hear a word from Letitia James. Nancy Pelosi's husband makes trades only Warren Buffett can dream about. Silence. And that's exactly the point. This isn't about stock trading. This is about getting Donald Trump. And that's not us saying it. That's her saying it, because that's what she ran on.
Will you sue him for us? Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass.
He should be charged with obstructing justice. I believe that the President of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses.
We must do our job to ensure that the man currently occupying the Oval Office is held accountable to any and everything he has done.
After January 20th at 12 o'clock, our investigation will continue.
The way she talks about Trump is something similar to what we heard from the chief of the Soviet secret police, Leland Vittert. He said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." James proved herself over the past few years to be a partisan warrior, not a fair-minded law enforcement officer. And she lived up to it. She made up novel theories to sue Trump and continue to investigate him. It might work for her campaign to be governor. That's what she's trying to do. But it isn't American. And frankly, there should be an investigation. Right before the tariff pause, there were some extremely questionable trades. About noon on that day. Trump also said out on social media it's a great time to buy, so anyone could argue they were just following the tweet, but there's some questionable trades. James is the wrong person. She has lost her credibility over the years because she spends all her time investigating Trump. It is impossible to get a fair shake when an attorney general runs her campaign on getting someone. She has disqualified herself. Like Trump, hate Trump. When a prosecutor builds their platform around getting someone, it's wrong. It's the kind of stuff that happens in Russia, not in America. And thanks to Letitia James, it's happening all over again. And to be fair, late tonight, there was a twist to this story. The Trump administration, along with the Federal Housing Finance Agency, has referred Letitia James to the DOJ over allegations of mortgage fraud. So whether or not those are true or proved in court, we'll see. But what is going to be fascinating to watch is to watch the people who cheered for James investigating Trump, all for the past 4 years, are going to now accuse Trump of political prosecution. Just watch. A lot more about this in War Notes. That's your chance for an inside look at the show every day. It is free. Warnotes.com to subscribe. You will be delighted and smarter and impress all your friends when you check your email at 7:05 p.m. Eastern at Leland Vittert on Instagram and Twitter. China is hitting back at Trump's tariffs. So, does it really look like China is going to make the deal that Trump says they will?
So the president, again, has made it quite clear that he's open to a deal with China, but China needs to make a deal with the United States of America.
You're listening to On Balance with Leland Vittert on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Leaders back in China are angry President Trump called them on their thievery and thuggery. It's about time. But the Chinese are upset, and they are claiming to be the victims now of American aggression. This from one of China's more senior mouthpieces. Let those peasants in the United States wail in front of the 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. The Chinese people do not cause trouble, nor are they afraid of trouble. Pressure, threats, and blackmail are not the right way to deal with China. Usually when China accuses the United States of doing something, they are guilty of it themselves. Pressure, yes. Threats, yes. Blackmail, yes. And that whole thing about trouble, well, they're guilty of that too. Bloomberg reports China has ordered its airlines not to take any further deliveries of Boeing jets as part of the trade war here. They're trying to hit the markets where it hurts. Obviously, Boeing employs an awful lot of people in America. Boeing has delivered 18 aircrafts to China this year, each delivery worth anywhere between $90 and $440 million. For the rest of this year and into 2027, Boeing planned 179 deliveries. This really hurts Boeing, especially in South Carolina. In an interview with Fox's Spanish language network today, the reporter noted that Panama will not renew its Belt and Road Initiative with China. This is something that President Trump put a lot of pressure on Panama to do. And Trump was asked about whether other Latin American countries should also choose to deal with the United States over China. Take a listen.
Well, maybe in a certain way. I saw what Panama did, what others are doing and maybe thinking about doing. Maybe. They should do that, yeah.
With us now, John Kasich, former Republican governor of Ohio, presidential candidate as well, author of his new book, Heaven Help Us. Good to see you, Governor, as always. The evil of China, I think the world is starting to recognize, Americans are starting to recognize, but it's a bipartisan thing to confront them. Why don't you think Trump is getting the credit for finally standing up to the Chinese after all these decades of appeasement?
Well, I think, first of all, Leland, we see the total chaos that was created by the sort of across-the-board tariffs, and some of the tariffs, just enormously high, not just directed at China, but directed at countries all across the world. Look, I mean, if you want to get some things corrected on trade, well, that's fine, but don't use the sledgehammer effect. Go in there and try to negotiate one group at a time, one country at a time. Now, in regard to China, I think what should have happened here, because China has taken advantage of us, they have ripped off some of our IP. They have not been fair. The most effective way to confront them, which I have been talking about for a number of years, is to do it as a group. Get the countries of the world that believe in free trade, that believe in the principles of openness, to work together to put the heat on China to get the kind of changes that we want and we sought. There's a great opportunity to do that. I don't know if that opportunity has been lost. Does China do things that are wrong? Should we take action against them? For sure. But this is pretty serious right now. And you take a look at the strength of our bond.
You say that what China does, that they do things that are wrong. And I feel like when Americans hear that, it's abstract. You think about the stealing of American technology. Their J-35 fighter jet looks remarkably like our F-35 fighter jet. Why? Because they stole all the plans and all the tech. We talked about never again, and we hear all the time about human rights and civil rights in the United States. They do to the Uyghurs what the Nazis did to Jews. You put up the side-by-side of the rail stations, and the Uyghurs hauled off to concentration camps, slave labor camps. That's exactly what China does. You can't tell the difference on the screen. And when we say, well, China does wrong things, but we kind of have to deal with them, it's okay. I hear Trump now sort of talking in this same good and evil way that Reagan did about the Soviets. Is that the clarity we need?
Well, I mean, I think he's calling it out. I think that if there's so many people that have called out the fact that China has taken advantage of us, they have ripped off our trade secrets, they have blocked us from being able to be in there. Of course, what they have been doing has been, very egregious. But, do we want to really get into a hyped up war of words with them?
Do we have a choice?
If we can resolve these issues in a way in which can be more productive, where we can have more access to their markets, where they stop stealing our IP. That to me probably makes the most amount of sense, because Reagan said that about the Soviet Union, but if you notice the rhetoric he used, the way he discussed it, he was extremely calm and direct, and I think that's what works best in dealing with the Chinese.
You said, the hyped up rhetoric. I feel like for decades, both parties, bipartisan, I'll call it appeasement of China, but sort of this idea that if only we bring them into the fold, they are going to change and live by the values that America lives by and America holds itself to. That's proven untrue. And I guess for people, good, fair-minded people who believe what China's doing is wrong, why there's this continued desire to think, we might be able to get China to play by the rules.
Well, first of all, that wasn't my position years ago. I felt all along that China had been violating so many of the norms that we expect in terms of trade, in terms of human rights, instead of a whole panoply of things in terms of the activity that they engaged in and shut down press in. They have been, and what they've done with the Uyghurs is terrible, absolutely terrible. And so I think what the China thing, what happened with them is the pendulum swung way to, we really need to deal with the Chinese. They're great. We can figure it out. We'll work it all out. And I believe that pendulum had swung too far. But the question is, when you swing the pendulum back, do you swing it all the way out here, where you have Xi being able to meet with countries around the world saying, you can count on us?
The book now is Heaven Help Us, although I often think sometimes it's better that it has to get done. Maybe how it's being done is sometimes it's important to zoom out and acknowledge it's important that somebody's doing it. But Heaven Help Us is the book. I think it's interesting because the faith communities in the United States, and it gets us to China. China, as we said, genocide against the Uyghurs, which are Muslims. Interestingly enough, the pro-Palestinian folks don't care about that. But also what they do to Christians is significant inside of China, which is effectively outlaw the religion. Are you seeing faith-based communities in the United States starting to wake up to that?
Well, I think a number of them have spoken out, and there's been great criticism of the Vatican for trying to get along with the cardinal over there. And look, I mean, the question is, can we have dialogues with people that we don't agree with? And at some point, do we put the hammer down and say not enough? I think we should be doing that with the Russians over in Ukraine. And frankly, we have to be very direct but we can be direct, But we don't have to do it in a way where we don't think we're going to make progress, where it just makes us feel good to say certain things, but it doesn't get us where we want to get to. Now, my book, Heaven Help Us, is not about politics.
No.
It's about individuals who can use the church, the synagogue, and the mosque with ideas that they have when they find purpose in their life in any variety of ways to be able to receive the psychological and maybe material support from these institutions to change the world while building community.
Governor, it's good to see you as always. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Leland. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Harvard University is taking a stand against the Trump administration. Should they get credit for giving up $2 billion? Barack Obama, among others, love Harvard University finally, and they are, quote unquote, standing up to the Trump administration's list of demands. Harvard, at the same time, is showing the world exactly who they are, and people who do that deserve credit. Harvard is foregoing $2.2 billion in federal dollars rather than end DEI programs and expel pro-Palestinian protesters.
When it comes to Harvard, the president's position on this is grounded in common sense, in the basic principle that Jewish American students, or students of any faith, should not be illegally harassed and targeted on our nation's college campuses. All the president is asking, don't break federal law, and then you can have your federal funding. I think the president is also begging a good question. More than $2 billion out the door to Harvard when they have a more than $50 billion endowment. Why are the American taxpayers subsidizing a university that has billions of dollars in the bank already?
In terms of just the facts there, Caroline Levitt has a point. Why are we funding Harvard? Harvard's current endowment of $53.2 billion is larger than the GDP of many small countries, including Cambodia, Iceland, Armenia, and Jamaica, the whole economy. But Harvard's friends say that government money is important, and probably it is, for things like cancer research for kids. So yes, Harvard now admits that DEI and folks supporting terrorism are more important than cancer research. Credit for showing us who you are. Joining us now, Nomiki Konst, progressive strategist and former Bernie Sanders surrogate. Welcome back to the program. Let's put aside whether pulling the funding is right or wrong for a minute. I promise I will let you answer that question. Political strategy. Is sitting around saying Harvard, who has $53 billion in endowment, must keep getting billions of dollars of taxpayer money a good strategy?
Well, yes, because the reasoning behind it is completely made up, and it is just a distraction away from what Donald Trump is doing to this country. I don't think it's really working. His reasoning is not working on the majority of Americans. Everyone knows that he's punishing Harvard. You know, these are the same people, you know, Donald Trump and his colleagues are the same people who would criticize protesters for showing up and protesting, you know, some racist bigot who was giving a speech, and they said that was cancel culture. Well, now Donald Trump wants to cancel the endowment of an institution that does.
He doesn't want to cancel the endowment.
Well, he wants to cut into the endowment. Excuse me. He wants to cancel the funding from the federal government, cut into the funding.
Well, let me just ask this hypothetically, okay? Because sometimes when you deal in extremes, it works. If the Biden administration, for example, had said to Harvard, either expel kids who ran around in Ku Klux Klan outfits on Harvard Square or lose federal funding, you'd be for it. So you're just saying it's based on what Harvard's doing?
First off, I would not be for that. We have a constitution. So even though I don't agree with that, and there are limits to our free speech in this country, right? It's not based on what Donald Trump thinks.
But this isn't about free speech. This is about a private university and saying if you want federal funding, you have to live up to these certain rules. Why is that not okay?
It is about free speech because he is tying this to whether or not the school is allowing anti-Semitism, which is about speech, and that is not up for his interpretation. And it will go to the courts about this if it does go that far. You know, he's essentially exercising McCarthyism all over again. He's weaponizing something against an institution to, you know, make sure that we're fighting over.
I'm praising Harvard here. I'm the one praising Harvard. It's also about whether or not they engage in these DEI practices. Again, though, look. You're a populist. You're a progressive. I still don't understand how for Democrats who are trying to reach, or progressives who are trying to reach working class Americans, you say, oh, by the way, we love giving billions of dollars to Harvard that has a $53 billion endowment. Why not say, absolutely not. Elite universities, none of them get federal funding.
I think that all universities should receive federal funding because so much of our research, whether it's around cancer research, whether it's about immunology, or whether it's dealing with defense systems. I mean, you have missile defense being designed. Missiles are being designed at these universities. It's about national security. It's about public health. It's about cancer research. It's about children's health research. I mean, so much of since World War II, so much.
Well, so if it's so, I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds. If it's so important, cancer research, missile research, and that's less important than DEI?
No, it is very important. They're taking a stand so that they're standing up to the administration, saying you can't just pull funding when you want to because you say so and you don't like what the institution does. That's the populism here. Okay. Donald Trump is using his power as a weapon against anybody who disagrees with him. It is McCarthyism. We have been here before.
I think
and the effect on our country, it is to weaken our country. These institutions.
I think every president's used their power, but I hear you. I hear you. Nomiki, it's always fun. Thank you. As I told you, top of 55 minutes past the hour we had to go. Come back, see us on set. We'd love to have you. One thing you'll be talking about tomorrow when we come back. It's a comedian. You're not.
Thanks for listening to News Nation on the go. I'm Marnie Hughes, and this is America's fastest growing cable news network, delivering fact-based, unbiased news from all sides.
America has changed. There's all sorts of things you can say now. The forefront of that is Tim Dillon. He's out with a new Netflix special. He'll be here tomorrow about how all these people got uncanceled all of a sudden.